Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Carrie Harris.
Two weeks, two commitments for Avery Johnson. He's off and running. This past weekend, he secured his second commitment. This one from Nick King, a small forward who will transfer in from Memphis. King was one of the top 50 high school players in the country 3 years ago. He'll be eligible in 2016 and have 2 years of eligibility remaining. Again, a top 50 player out of high school 3 years ago. So AJ has got it going. And with that, we say good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA TV Sports Director Gary Harris. Our program presented each and every week by Buffalo Riot. Tonight, I'm going to say ice cold, Rodney, because I had Katerina put them in the freezer for just a few minutes before the show. Diet Pepsi.
It's cold.
That gets me fired up. A little caffeine. Remember, Diet Pepsi, no calories, all that great Pepsi taste. Of course, you know I like Pepsi Next, too, but I'm going completely sugarless, Rodney.
Wow.
I'm really cracking it down. All right, let's discuss Coach Johnson and his recruiting in just a little bit here on the program, but we're going to lead off with the hot rumor on campus here in Tuscaloosa. We've been touching on it, giving you some hints the last few weeks. We touched on it in depth last week, but Braxton Miller, the Ohio State quarterback, rumored to be high on the Tide's radar if he decides to transfer away from Columbus. Now, he is going to be getting out of school here soon. His friend, Trey DePriest, said that Braxton was in Tuscaloosa 3 times this season, but it was because he was visiting Dr. James Andrews in Birmingham. Now, Nick Saban was asked in Huntsville at the Crimson Caravan last week about the possibility of transfers joining the program this offseason.
If there was somebody out there that I thought could help our team, we have a spot or two available that we could probably, but it'd have to be the right person in the right place that could make a contribution, because that would be something that would have to be good for that person, and it would have to be good for us.
All right, Rodney and audience, I want to be clear. Coach was not asked about Braxton Miller specifically. Braxton Miller's name was never mentioned, but you heard it there. He did say that under the right circumstances, he would be open to taking a transfer. It's not hard to see why any coach would want Braxton Miller. Look at his stats at Ohio State. I mean, he's a machine, Rodney. 2-time Big Ten Player of the Year. Easy to forget how good he was before the injury, because the 2 quarterbacks that followed him up, of course, did great as well. But, you know, he may not even be the quarterback if he stays in Columbus. He could potentially be 3rd string, so that's one reason all the transfer rumors are out there. And it's worth mentioning that today over at Greensboro, or at the Reynolds Plantation in Georgia, Coach Urban Meyer was asked about the possibility of Braxton Miller transferring. He says the indications he's getting is that Braxton will stay at Ohio State. But, you know, Rodney, what do you expect him to say at this point?
There's really not much he can say, to be honest with you. But you look at Braxton Miller, the player, Gary, Coach Saban said, is the right person, the right position, or right spot. I think, you know, Braxton Miller, you know, in Alabama's needs, certainly I think the quarterback situation is still unsettled. You bring in a guy like that, he is a difference maker. You're talking about a guy that has rushed for about 3,000 yards in his career, thrown for 5,000, 52 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. The guy can kind of do it all. He's a lot like Blake Sims, you know, as a passer. He's probably faster. He's a guy, Gary certainly is faster. He runs a 4.40, and, you know, we know what kind of threat he is as a runner and a passer. So he's a guy that I think you could bring in with his experience, and, you know, that may be the only real missing part this team has.
Wow. So your feeling is that if he wanted to transfer to Alabama, Nick
Well,
Saban and company would take him
You know, again, let's
open arms.
also talk about he has had some injuries, and
Right.
he set out last season with the shoulder.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy. I mean, certainly, again. And again, I'm not saying he would come here and top anything necessarily that Blake Sims did or whatever, but I'm saying he's a guy with the experience, with the ability that could really make a difference for this Alabama team, in my opinion.
Well, you know he's got his eye on the NFL draft for next year, and certainly Alabama in the last few years has been NFLU in terms of first-round draft picks. We're a couple of days away from the first round of this year's draft, and 2 former Crimson Tide stars are hoping to hear their names called in that first round. I'm pretty sure they will. Amari Cooper and Landon Collins are the only 2 Alabama players that are first-round potential choices, but Amari's going to go in the top 5 picks most likely. Landon should fall in the first round as well. Rodney, let's discuss this trend. Alabama has had 16 first-round draft picks since 2009, probably 2 more this year. That would be 18. as great a coach as Paul Bryant was, and he was a tremendous coach for 25 years at Alabama, Coach Saban's already had more first-round draft picks at Alabama than Coach Bryant did.
Yeah, that's incredible, Gary, with the success they've had. Now, again, I think that's a big part of why you have the recruiting success. Obviously, the winning plays a big role in it. The overall program that, you know, Nick Saban has established here and implemented, I think clearly that all plays into it. But these kids want an opportunity to go to the NFL. They watch the draft. They see how many guys that Alabama's puts there, and they think, you know, they can get me there. And I think that it's kind of just feeds itself. And I think as we move on, next year we'll continue to see guys, Alabama players go in the first round, probably more next year than go with this year.
Could go possibly third to Jacksonville, but most likely won't fall past fourth to Oakland and land in, as we said, a mid to latter first-round pick. All right, here is a look at where NFL.com projects the rest of Alabama's draftable players. T.J. Yeldon expected to go between the second and fourth rounds, while Ari Kwanjo, Xavier Dixon, Austin Shepard, and Jalson Fowler are projected to go somewhere between fifth and seventh rounds. Again, the draft is 7 rounds. The first round is on Thursday night in Chicago. Amari Cooper is not going to attend. Neither is Marcus Mariota. Neither is Jameis Winston. Maybe they should have left it in New York. You know, that's kind of the tradition. A lot of guys skipping it this year in Chi-Town. Nick Saban also announcing tonight at the Crimson Caravan in Dothan that he will not attend the draft this year either. Well, it's a light schedule for the Crimson Caravan, speaking of that event this year, but the off-season road trip for Crimson Tide Athletics kicked off last Tuesday in Huntsville. Nick Saban was joined by head men's basketball coach Avery Johnson. Both coaches are looking towards the future. Saban talked about the missing ingredient for his football team, while Coach Johnson discussed the new caliber of player the Tide will look to recruit.
We need to get our mojo back a little bit. You know, we got to get our identity back. You know, we used to be a team that nobody wanted to play, relentless competitors, tough, hard-nosed. I mean, we got to get some of that back, and everybody needs to focus on, you know, what do you want to do to have a great team in Alabama, and put the team first and not worry about a lot of other things that we've had a few distractions with the last couple of years that I think have affected how we finished the season.
A lot of the young players that are in the 2016, 2017 class are guys that we have our eyes on that maybe would have told the University of Alabama no years ago. Hopefully they'll tell us maybe, and hopefully some will tell us yes.
The Caravan, as I mentioned, stopping off in Dothan tonight, and 2 more stops are all there is going to be this year. Dallas, Texas on the 5th of May, and Atlanta on May the 12th. And that will be it for the Caravan. But not even close to being done here on TITV. More to come. Next, we'll see what Coach Saban was up to earlier today in Atlanta. It looked a lot like this. Jen Chapman caught up with Coach Saban and Coach Stallings at the Rise Golf Tournament last week. We'll hear their conversation. You don't want to miss that. That's coming up next. And also, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the information is posted right there on your screen. The phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or you can reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV, and that's where BJ Milliken prefers it. If you want to tweet at us, we'll get it on the air. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. Year in a row, Alabama's Nick Saban and Mark Ingram took part in the Chick-fil-A Challenge, and this year they nearly took the whole thing. The guys went to a 3-team playoff with Georgia Tech and South Carolina before falling just short. In the end, the runner-up finish is the highest for the Tide in the 9-year history of the event, and they get $65,000 for Alabama scholarship funds and charity. Here's how they finished. Paul Johnson and John Berry win for the 2nd year in a row and the 4th time overall. South Carolina's Steve Spurrier and Sterling Sharp finished third, so you know Saban happy to finish ahead of the old ball coach with their little rivalry. Now, Coach Saban doesn't talk a lot about it, but he really does enjoy the game of golf and prides himself in how well he plays. And that's exactly what he was doing last week in the Gene Stallings annual golf tournament in partnership with the RISE program. Both coaches took part in the event, which is a fundraiser for the RISE school put on by Coach Stallings right here at Old Colony in Tuscaloosa. Now, our own Jen Chapman caught up not with just Nick Saban or Gene Stallings, but both of them at the same time for this very enlightening conversation about their work on and off the football field.
Coach Saban, a great tournament out here today. What kind of influence has Coach Stallings had on you? I know he's right here, but you got to answer this question.
Well, you know, I think I have a tremendous amount of respect for guys like Coach Stallings, who have done so much for the game and so much for the community and the people in the community. And this event for Rise is fantastic, and we always really enjoy being a part of it.
And you've really followed in his footsteps. I mean, I know you've had the success on the field, but Nick's kids here in Tuscaloosa, I know it was a program before Tuscaloosa, but it's blown up in Tuscaloosa as well. Can you talk a little bit about Nick's kids?
Well, you know, we just like to create opportunities for young people, and you know, Rise is always one of the things that we really like to support. And you know, Terry's done a fantastic job, and you know, all over the state trying to help people. So, you know, we're just happy to give back to the community.
Well, I was going to ask about Miss Terry next, but you brought it up with the women behind you, Miss Ruth Ann and Miss Terry. What is it like to have those women supporting both of you?
You think they support us?
They support us when we win, honey.
That's right.
Every once in a while we don't get that support we need.
That's right. Well, you know, I support Miss Terry because she's been a great partner, and she's been very, very helpful here in our success here. But I think we have a great team here, and a lot of people contribute to it. But she's done a lot of things for a lot of people here.
And Coach Stallings, what is it like to see Coach Saban come in, do similar things that you did, but also in the community?
Well, it's a pure joy for me. I mean, you know, he's in great demand. He could be a jillion places today, but he's here helping out, and I just really appreciate him, and I appreciate what he's done in the fall. So what a great job his teams do. They're extremely well coached, and they play for the national championship every year. Not many people do that.
And do you have any advice for him before we take off?
Yeah, just keep doing what he's been doing. I mean, we appreciate it. We want him in that championship game in the SEC, and then we want him in the national championship game. So far, he's been able to do that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. What about Jen there?
She did a fantastic
Coach
job.
Saban and Coach Stallings at the same
not
time.
Not intimidated at all, is she?
That's good stuff right there. Our thanks to the coaches and to Jen Chapman for that very enlightening interview. Well, Nick Saban was all smiles right there, and he was smiling this past week as the Tide picked up another commitment for the 2016 recruiting class. Rodney, you follow the recruiting as well as anybody. Let's talk about Texas offensive lineman Chris Owens first. He comes from a big-time program there in Arlington, Texas. Texas A&M, Texas among those after him. So you know you're getting a well-schooled, disciplined football player on the offensive line. Big, strong, you know, active kid. Reminds some a little bit of Chance Warmack.
Yeah, I think that's a good, you know, if you want to talk about when Chance was coming out of high school, just physically you look at him, he's maybe not quite as big as Chance was. He's 6'4", 312, and, you know, he moves really well, Gary. He's athletic, he's versatile. He, you know, you see them there, he finishes blocks, he's very physical, very strong at the point of attack, and I think it's a huge pickup. Had over 30 offers, and, you know, Texas A&M, certainly all the schools out there. You don't see many times that Alabama and Auburn battle over a guy that is from the state of Texas, but Auburn offered him. And so, again, I think you're talking about another top offensive lineman. Alabama's recruited really well on the offensive line. They've got a commitment from Jonah Williams, one of the top offensive tackles out of California. Now you throw in Chris Williams, who's an outstanding guard prospect. They're on their way again.
All right, let's take a look at his measurables. He is a big guy, probably going to play inside at guard, although he has the versatility to play at tackle. So a nice offensive line pickup. Mario Cristobal, the offensive line coach at Alabama, really has done a good job of, you know, targeting prospects and then with the help of the staff getting these guys to come to Alabama. Well, still more to come here on Tider Insider TV when we return to look at how Alabama's softball team did in its final regular season home series. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information there on your screen on how you can get in touch with us. So go ahead and dial in. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider Television. We'll return right after these messages. After dropping game one against Tennessee, the Alabama softball team stormed back at Rhodes Stadium, outscoring the Vols 13-4 in the final two games to take the series. Alabama finishes out the regular season home schedule with 19 wins at Rhodes Stadium. They're always tough there. And here's what's coming up for Murph and the ladies. They will head to Arkansas for a three-game set beginning on Friday. Arkansas has won only one conference game all year. Then next week, the SEC tournament will begin in Baton Rouge, and that's going to be something else. LSU, of course, will have the home field advantage. All right, Rodney, let's head now to the phone lines. And first up is Bill in Gadsden. Hey, Bill, welcome into the program.
Yes, Roll Tide. I was wondering how hard it was to get in and see the coaches or maybe get in to see a practice and talk to the coaches and try to straighten out this field goal problem we've been having for 3 years.
Well, Bill, are you talking about for somebody just to try to get in from as a fan or like yourself?
Yes.
Well, it's going to be difficult. I can just to be real honest with you. You know, I don't know about what to tell you about how to go around getting it. I would try an email or a letter. I'd write to somebody in the athletic department about the possibility of what the chances are of seeing a practice for the public. And if you've got any thoughts on the kicking game, again, you can email in there, diagram or whatever you need to do. But I can assure you they're looking at everything. And when you say the kicking game had issues, I know you're probably pointing to the play against Auburn, but last year it was pretty good. And of course the punting situation was the best in the country. I thought last year.
Punting was fabulous. I mean, you can't do a lot better than that, much better. I'm sure he is talking about place kicking, field goal kicking, what have you. But again, I think when you look at Adam Griffith last year, he struggled with a couple of injuries, and I think that really hurt him in terms of his accuracy. I think he's got a tremendous amount of leg talent and potential, and hopefully, Gary, this is his year to really turn it around, because I think he can be an outstanding kicker. And Cade Foster in 2013 really had a good year until the end. He was pretty consistent at that point, until that point at the end, and so they have had some difficulties, though.
Bill, one thing you might want to look at do is joining the Red Elephant Club, because they have the opportunity to watch some practices from time to time. All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to CB. CB, what's going on?
Don't know it, man. It's y'all's world. I'm just passing through, Rodney and Gary. Good to chat with you. But look, this Braxton Miller deal, I mean, he's been injured, and, what effect will it have on the other quarterbacks and recruiting? And, I mean, the recruiting we've been getting, we're bound to have a quarterback out there, ain't we, brother? And how many have we got?
Well, they got 5 on scholarship, but, Braxton Miller will only be a 1-year deal, and I don't think it would affect recruiting at all. He'd be gone after this season. He'd be competing. They'd still be competing. As it stands right now, you don't have a starting quarterback, so he'd just be added into the mix.
Yeah, and Gary, certainly when you look at it, I think people talk about team chemistry. I don't think it impacts team chemistry in a negative way whatsoever. These guys, they want to win, and, they certainly want the best guy, whoever that might be, and you take a guy like that, and if he comes in, can make a difference for your team. I think what he does for team chemistry is he helps it. I think it's in a positive way. So, I'm really not that concerned about what it would do in terms of recruiting. I mean, I think that it could possibly help you. You see a quarterback have success in a particular program. I think it certainly entices these young guys and piques their interest a little.
Just can't get enough good football players. All right, we're not done yet on TITV. When we come back, we'll check in on Mitch Gaspard's baseball team. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, that's how you get in touch with us, so go ahead and do so. We'll be back with more of Tider Insider TV, rolling to the break here from Tuscaloosa, our studios in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Stay with us. It was a tough Saturday for the Alabama baseball team in Oxford as they dropped both games of a doubleheader against Ole Miss, but they were able to bounce back on Sunday with a 13-run outburst to salvage the final game of the 3-game series. And despite that win, Alabama drops its 5th SEC series of the season. The Tide will host Southern Miss tonight before hosting Arkansas this weekend. They're really going to have to turn it on. It's one thing to get in the SEC tournament and have any chance at playing past Hoover, so they need to start winning some series here in a hurry. All right, let's head back to the phone lines. John is waiting there in Bessemer. Hey, John, what's up?
Gary, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, you the man.
Man, I was wondering how Alabama's going to be this year, man. I know Arkansas and Tennessee and all them going to be pretty good, but I was wondering how we going to be this year later. All
right, John. Well, everybody, like you say, Arkansas, Tennessee, everybody else in the league is working to get better. Alabama is the target, no doubt about that. But, Rodney, as I say, every year since 2008, it seems Alabama's always in the hunt. It's going to come down to a play here and there. If they make that play or win that close game or two, they could be back in Atlanta and have a chance to get in the playoff again. That's just where Alabama football's at. Doesn't mean they're going to make it, but they're always in the hunt.
Man, they have a really rough stretch in October.
Yeah.
I think they play Georgia, Texas A&M, Tennessee. Several teams back to back. I mean, really difficult. A couple of those games are going to be on the road, and then they go into November. You've got LSU and Auburn. So they've got a really difficult schedule, John. I think they've got a ton of talent all over the field. Again, I think that if Alabama can get their quarterback situation settled and a guy who can make some plays, I think they've got a chance to make another run at the playoffs.
All right, let's take an email. This is on one of the Tide's young pass rushers, Tim Williams. And emailer wants to know why Tim Williams doesn't play more, Rodney. We don't see it there on the screen, but that's the email. There it is. Why doesn't Tim play more? And You know, it's a good question, legitimate question. As good as Alabama's been up front, the pass rush is an area that got a little better last year, but continues to lack. He had a great spring by all accounts. Really looked good in the A-Day game as well. You know, has that quick first step, can get around the edge, but also big enough to you know, do the power rush.
And I think a lot of people forget that last year at the beginning of the year he was suspended and missed a good part of the early practices. And I think, you know, when you're talking about doing everything the right way, I think that's a big part of it. And again, he got past that. And he did start to play some, but I also think that you have to watch games really closely. Sometimes you see some things. If you remember the Mississippi State game, sometimes you don't do things right technically. You run past the quarterback, you allow him to step up, make a play, like happened in that game. And, you know, those are little things that guys are coached to do, and they have to do them the right way, and they earn more playing time, more playing opportunities. The coaches have to trust them. I think Tim Williams really seems to be maturing in that way, Gary, and I think he could be a tremendous pass rusher.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and the email. When we come back, it's more Avery Johnson. This time he got to throw out a first pitch, and I tell you what, he's got an arm on it. Of course, he's a great athlete. We know that. That's a look at Tuscaloosa from our Tower Cam. We'll be back with more TITV right after this. Avery Johnson's proving in a hurry. He's not one to shy away from the spotlight. Here he is throwing out the first pitch at Alabama's softball game last week against Tennessee, and I tell you what, he drilled it in there. He got some coaching from Stephanie Van Brakel. He said that he hopes his team on the court is just as good as his first pitch, because it was pretty good. All right, that is going to do it for this week's program. It's dinner time. Tonight we're headed over to one of our favorite places, Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Buddy's is open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Big portions, hometown atmosphere. We'll be there in about 15 minutes if you want to come talk some football with us. We'll see you then. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay at 10:30, or you can find us anytime at WVUATV.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. This has been Tighter Insider TV. Have a great night, everybody.